Here on the Colour of Country Life, Flow FM, it's an important conversation with Anne Webster, the member for Mallee, with flood impacts across the electorate. And how is the electorate holding up?
Look, the electorate is proving, as always, how stoic it is, how community-oriented it is. I just, it takes my breath away how people have each other's back in small communities. And yesterday we were down in Charlton and the Donald region and just talking with locals and seeing how they're going. Meeting up with the mayor, of course, Darryl Warren, and it really does take my breath away. They're just so supportive. People are concerned, of course. Charlton was rising. We were walking down the street, and it literally was going up an inch an hour. So changes were happening before our very eyes, and we went to Wycheproof and met at the relief centre there, where locals from Charlton are hanging out in the P-12 school. So met up with the SES, met up with the CFA and with locals, and just hearing their stories and how they're managing.
And we had very sadly a tragedy across in Rochester, but have we seen any alarming or concerning behaviour from, people trying to drive through floodwaters or anything like that?
Look, the SES tell me that there are people who are doing that, and obviously we strongly advise that is a bad idea. And they've had to do some rescues of people. I think that's what makes the SES job so much harder, is people making those choices to, play chicken effectively with floodwater, never a good idea. And they have to spend their resource and time, because it takes a lot of people to go out and rescue somebody who's got stuck in a car. And apparently there was one person who was left in their car overnight in the floodwaters. They just couldn't get to them. So, it's a big risk and not one to take.
It certainly puts the lives at risk of emergency service volunteers as well, trying to help people out. I guess it may be in one sense too soon to talk about the adequacy of flood mitigation arrangements in the electorate, but is there going to be a time where, I know Darryl Warren did speak with us about his concerns in this area now that we've got this amount of water coming through? Yeah,
look, in terms of funding, I've certainly called Dan Andrews the other day to call a disaster so that the federal government funding can be released, and that has happened, but the funding has not been released to any shires in Mallee at this point in time. Sam Birrell, my colleague over in Nichols, of course, he has hundreds of homes that have been inundated, and so money is flowing to those areas. But 5 homes being inundated, that's still 5 homes, and we're not at the peak yet. So we're still watching and waiting with Charlton, and I'm about to head down to Kerrang today, Bridgewater, Inglewood, Newbridge, and Maryborough down at Carisbrook. We're hoping that the worst has occurred at Carisbrook, but they're talking about another rain bomb, 30 to 50 mils, towards the end of the week. So everyone's just watch and see.
Yeah, I noticed Premier Daniel Andrews and the Prime Minister Anthony Albanese, I think, were in Bendigo with Murray Watt, the Agriculture Minister, on Sunday, getting a briefing. That's the latest briefing you've received as we talk to you Monday morning. Is that's where the current concerns are, or are we seeing the likelihood of further river rises in some parts of the electorate?
Well, the state government certainly gives me no briefing. Let's be clear about that. They're not passing on information to me as the local federal MP. I would think that would be an appropriate thing to do. However, that's not happening. I have requested an SES contact so that I can call someone about particular issues. Spoken with Murray Watt about that and requested that. I'm still waiting for that to happen. And fundamentally, it's local shires, it's mayors, it's local knowledge. Honestly, if you'd been in Donald yesterday and seen John McConville and the local guys repairing major breaches in a pipe that was going to cause Donald serious trouble if they weren't there. It's manpower, it's local knowledge that is informing the decisions. And that is so much better, honestly, than having, as they tell me, than having a bureaucrat in Melbourne or even Bendigo deciding what's best for people to do. So the local knowledge is is incredible and very valuable, because people remember, of course, Charlton 2011. People are still traumatised. I had locals in the street yesterday telling me that they are still not over PTSD. One lady walked away from me. There were two others with me, and another lady walked away. And they said she's walked away because she just can't manage the trauma of having to revisit this again. And, we need to be really mindful that when you lose everything, when your house is inundated, it is trauma. And when it's all happening all over again, I can't even imagine how people are keeping it together. So we just want to be there to make sure that support rolls out and that people have the support locally that they need.
And are there some sandbag collection sites in operation? How is that being managed at the moment?
Look, the SES and the local CFA councils are working together incredibly well, as they do, and ensuring, my read yesterday was that there were 55 sandbag points that people could collect sandbags from. And so there's plenty of support there. Charlton yesterday had black plastic and sandbags for most shop doorways in the main street. And I haven't seen any pics this morning to see just how much water is flowing through Charlton, but they were certainly expecting a lot.
And I understand the Defence Force, I think your colleague, National Party State Leader Peter Walsh, had asked Premier Andrews and the others in leadership to get the Defence Force deployed to assist. Are we seeing any Defence Force personnel heading into your area soon, or is it more so perhaps at Rochester and around Moama, Echuca, we might be seeing them deployed?
Yeah, Ricky, I think the major role for the ADF is on clean-up and recovery. So Rochester, of course, is ahead of where we are. I'm in Mildura this morning, and, fundamentally we're doing fine here. And it's not really until after the flood has peaked that the ADF are really deployed to do a lot of that major cleanup. So, I agree with you. I think that it's happening mostly over at Rochester and some of the areas, Seymour, perhaps Murchison, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm sure whilst and protecting life and property is the front of minds for people, you have a federal budget next in 8 days' time. I'm sure this brings to the spotlight the infrastructure needs of regional Australia when it comes to, I guess, the damage that can happen very quickly to our roads and public infrastructure and homes.
Just millions and millions. You go into the billions for road reconditioning now. The damage that has occurred from the rains, from the floods, from the much larger trucks and the volume of trucks that are on the road now as opposed to rail, we're in a whole world of pain. And I read this morning about the budget cuts to regional centres, and I have not yet begun to fight, let me put it that way.
And just while we're mentioning infrastructure before we finish, I'll just come back to mind. The Albocatcha Bridge recently was one that had a fair bit of work done on it. How are all the bridges holding up in the area?
I haven't heard of any bridges falling yet, and the Albocatcha Bridge, of course, is built for a 100-year flood. So I'm not sure how much water is going on down there. I did talk to the Hindmarsh CEO a couple of days ago. He certainly was concerned about Dimboola, but hadn't indicated any particular concerns around the Albocatcha Bridge. So I just need to continue keeping in touch with mayors and CEOs of the councils to find out the lowdown.
Absolutely, and good to know you're in touch with those that are, there on the ground in the local area with the knowledge that helps fight these challenges as well. Thank you very much for sharing your time today as you get around your area and supporting your community. Thanks again.
Thanks, Ricky.
And importantly, in the conclusion of that interview with the mention of mental health impacts of natural disasters, remember, if you are in crisis, contact Lifeline 13 11 14. Beyond Blue, also available to help you, 1300 22 46 36.